carried enough. It's time to set it down. Join us for the Wear Wellness Promotion 26, presented by Women's Educational and Healing Retreats, Inc., a day of healing, hope, and community. Discover wellness resources, connect with local vendors, and find encouragement on your journey toward peace and restoration. March 28th at Windcrest United Methodist Church in Windcrest. Learn more and register today at wellnesscentersa.com.
Welcome, TAN TV audience, to another episode of Community Conversations with Tyrone Darden. We're going to get into some deep stuff today, so hope y'all ready. But first, I'm going to allow our guest, Mr. Jose Macias. He is a Judson Independent School District board member, board trustee, and we're going to do this wiki style. So instead of him just saying all this stuff about himself, I'm going to treat it like we read this wiki. So I'm going to have him give us some information. I'm going to do 2 or 3 things at a time. So tell us your name, where you was born, and your alma mater.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here just to have that deep conversation. It's always important. Jose A. Macias, Jr., and I say junior because my wife wants to remind me I'm not my father. I'm junior. Actually, I've been alma mater, you talking college or high school?
However you define it.
I'm a graduate of John Jay High School. I want good Mustangs. Got some good players come out of John Jay. But I've been on the board for Judson for 16 years now, and all my family's gone through Judson, so I feel like I'm really connected to Judson as well. That's my home now. And, of course, I'm also a Our Lady of the Lake graduate. So
Good. So just on the top end of your wiki, so you've told us who you are, where you're from. You mentioned children, and you mentioned a wife. So let's close it out with family and occupation.
Well, I'm currently an executive director of a nonprofit that serves underprivileged communities. So right now we're currently on the west side working with middle school age students and their parents. It's essentially a leadership and development program for them.
Good. You don't want to name drop the nonprofit, give them no exposure.
Unity 37 Coalition. And pretty soon it's going to be Unity SA because we're going to try to go to the east side and south side because there's need throughout Bexar County.
It is. All right, let's jump right in it. For those who have been paying attention, education period across the board has been a very, very hot button topic. But just recently, it's been a lot of changes over at the Judson Independent School District. Now, me personally, I'm a product of San Antonio Independent School District. We got our own problems, but I was talking to one of the board members the other day, and I said, ain't you happy for Judson? And she said, why? I said, because they got all that going on over there. There ain't nobody worried about JudsonISD. And she started laughing. She said, I'm actually getting calls. People want a partner. So, that's a good thing. But back to Judson Independent School District. There's a lot going on over there. And not really from a board member perspective, but just an advocate for youth. How would you sum up the last 90 days, whether it be you're a Judson employee, you're a Judson student, a Judson parent, or just in the community supporting, Judson Independent School District? How would you sum up the last 90 days?
Chaotic is the first word.
Chaotic.
It's chaos in very unimaginable ways. Like I mentioned, I've been doing this a while. This is my 5th term as a board member, and I've never seen it this divisive, this chaotic. It truly is, as I mentioned in a board meeting recently, like we're off the rails. We're certainly not in the trajectory that we should be. Now, I will also say this, too, for the community. Our campuses are focused on what the job is, but you have to still wonder, are teachers feeling the stress? Are they feeling the burden of consolidation and closing schools? Are they worried about their job? I would imagine they would be, even though we're doing everything we can to retain talent in the district. So when you talk about how employees may feel, there's definitely some concern. Students, I would like to say that we've kept them sheltered, but if you saw the news reports of students that spoke to the board that were asking the board not to close their schools, there were students walking out in tears. So we know now at a social emotional level, students are being impacted. And that's why I've continued to advocate in forums like this that the steps that have been taken are far too aggressive and too detrimental to student success. And chaos is the best word, because what we're doing now is not in the best interest of students.
So chaos. Let's build on that word though. Let's add a word to it. Let's add the word leadership. So I heard you say chaos, chaotic, and you qualified why you felt that way. You gave a lot of examples from different levels. But from a leadership standpoint, how do you move from chaos to stability? And again, I understand not one person makes all the decisions. And even when the group makes a decision, it doesn't happen overnight. But as a leader, how do we move from chaos to stability?
Well, that's a very good question. I've been asked that question by numerous stakeholders. You and I are fighters, right? We fight for our community. And obviously, as a leader in the community, my job is to represent my district and fight for my district in any and every capacity possible. The only way I see a way forward is if there's a true effort to build consensus and unity, which at this point, there is nothing but disunity. So if there's continuance on disunity, disruption, chaos, I can't remain silent and say, for the sake of unity, I have to stand up and say, what's happening here is wrong. And so until we're going the right direction, I have a job. I have a responsibility to inform my community of all of the governance lapses, the leadership lapses, and the impact on students. We must communicate them. And so until all of those things are resolved, I don't see a way for us to be singing Kumbaya.
Wow. So I just want to make sure I heard that right. Going back to the word chaos. At this point, it's so chaotic that there isn't a clear pathway to move forward.
Well, in all fairness, in case folks out there haven't read the paper or watched the news, all of this really hit a point on January 10th. We had a superintendent who I still claim and believe was railroaded from their job. And a lot of folks have said, we don't want politics in the boardroom. We know it's a political animal. There's always going to be a level of politics. We want focus on children. But I can tell you, January 10th was all politics. And what's happened after the 10th has been a continuation of very bad politics. You know, so the current superintendent that is been proposed for termination, he shouldn't have been. And literally, because he was an obstacle to the majority of the board, they found a way to doctor a reason. And they put him on the pathway for proposed termination. Then fast forward, we had a deputy superintendent who was just made interim soup, African-American woman, bright, Dr. Toppin, Juar Toppin. And 12 days later, the board president on her own goes and finds another superintendent who is our current interim now. But she excluded the board from the entire process. So she took liberties to take action when she shouldn't have. It should have been a collective board decision. And that's where there is severe deficiencies in leadership, because the leadership doesn't do that.
I just got to clarify a question, because I want to make sure I heard you correctly. So it sounds like in a matter of 2 weeks, Judson Independent School District had 3 superintendents?
In 4 weeks or 5, we had 4 superintendents.
4 superintendents.
We had Dr. Fields, who was then put on administrative leave.
Okay.
We had Dr. Lacey Gosh, who was the acting soup, pending the investigation.
Okay.
Then when the proposed determination was voted on, 4-3, by the way, 4 yeses to 3 noes, we had to put an interim soup in. The interim soup was the deputy soup, Dr. Juar Toppin.
Okay.
And then 12 days later, there was an agenda item to bring in another interim soup. And the reason why that's significant is because the board president and vice president voted against the deputy soup, but they still found a way to put the item back on the agenda to bring in someone they wanted. And so that's all political. The deputy soup should be our superintendent right now, but she was not liked by our board president, and she found a way to remove her.
So what is the goal of the board specific to the superintendent? Is the goal to get a permanent superintendent, or?
The next step is that we do need to do a search for a permanent soup.
Okay.
But in my humble opinion, Dr. Fields should never have been removed. Part of the politics that people need to understand is that Dr. Fields was tasked with trying to bring proposals for reducing our deficit. We have an enormous deficit at Judson. He presented a pathway for us to do that. But the board president, I believe, did not agree with that pathway because she kept pulling discussion on the budget from the agenda. We should have been talking about budgets in October, November. And in December specifically, we voted to discuss the budget, and she said no. And so by a 4-3 vote, we didn't discuss it. So the problem is that Dr. Fields was only recommending 2 to 3 schools to be closed. The collective wisdom from Ms. Ryan and others, they wanted 4 campuses closed. Ultimately, we closed 4 because I believe the political will was we don't want just 2 campuses closed. So how do you get to your 4 campuses closed? You remove the administration that's being objective to it. And that's why I say there's definitely politics in the mix.
Well, the community is who we're talking to. We don't just want to talk at them. We want to provide information. So let's walk it back a little bit. Closing schools, I would assume, addresses the budget deficit in operations and staffing, personnel, all those things that are basically the bulk of a budget. If not closing schools, then what? How would you address that?
That's a good question. I'm going to tell you something. When we do budgets, or anyone who does budgets, they look at everything, right? They don't look just at one part of the budget. The proposal that Dr. Fields had brought to us included millions of dollars in cuts that did not include consolidation. But we never talked about them. Some of the recommendations that Dr. Fields brought to the table were to sell excess property we had.
Okay.
And there were a few properties that would total up to $18.2 million, which would have really helped address the deficit. And then there were also 83 positions, I believe, that we had not filled that would have saved a continuance of $4.6 million.
Okay.
Then if we reduce a week, 6 days from employee contracts, it would have saved another $1 million. None of that came out because the focus ended up becoming about consolidation. And the problem with that is it's fool's gold because there are only projections of how much each elementary would save us, each middle school would save us. They don't know that for a fact because now we got to bus students to other campuses. So now you have increased transportation costs. There's no accurate number until we go through it. So bottom line is if you're trying to minimize impact to students, why did we start with students? By closing campuses. So we should have had formative discussions about every other budget deficit cut before we got to campuses, and we did not. This battle about consolidation has been happening at least since October of 24, and the board majority back in December of 24 did not agree with closing multiple campuses.
Let me ask a follow-up question. So I understand there are other areas that can be made more efficient to lessen the debt, and that school closure consolidation would be the last measure. But all those things that comes before the last measure, would they have been enough to close the deficit?
I believe it would have because we still had one more play. If Dr. Fields' plan was a 2-year plan. And again, some of the philosophy on the board is that we need to balance our budget by this fiscal year, June 30th. So there's an aggressive push to try to do that. But that push is going to be way too aggressive. So the 2-year plan is what I liked. It was a way to be strategic and cognizant of student outcomes and personnel. all of the items that were precursors to get into consolidating schools could have put us in a position where our deficit may have been under 10 million, not 37 million. We have reserve funds of 80 million right now. We could have continued to look for other cuts, and we would only have had to close maybe 1 or 2 campuses, not 4. And then the last thing is that we still could have gone to voters this November to ask for a 3-cent tax increase, and that would have alleviated the rest of that 10 million.
All right, help us out on that, because a lot of our community aren't really up to speed when it comes to how public spaces are funded, to the point to where either some may or may not be involved in a mortgage, whether they have one and maybe their wife or their husband handles that, or they may not be homeowner that actually looks at the bill and the breakdown. Talk to us about layered thing. So how schools are funded, just on the basis on with taxes and things like that. How schools are funded, and then the areas that can support school funding, like you're saying about the 3 cent in November, that could potentially move forward or could have. And then I don't know if that's different from the Vader or if it's the same or similar, but just kind of talk to us about school funding and then resources to support school funding, like the Vader or this 3 cent tax.
There's a couple of things to note on this.
Okay.
We get an allocation from the legislature of so many dollars per student.
Okay.
That's one way that we get revenue based on our enrollment, and there's a snapshot in October and all that kind of stuff. Each student has a dollar value so that we can staff teachers and all that kind of stuff. The legislature usually raises that allotment every 2 years, every legislative cycle, but they stopped doing that in 2019. And so we anticipated an increase in 2023 when they met. They didn't do it. In 2025, they did, but they only increased it by $55 per student. Inflation alone between 2019 and 2025 exceeded even that. So we were not able to do very much with $55 extra dollars. So that underfunding of public ed created this whole situation. I always say if the legislator would have raised the allocation per student by at least $1,000, which they've done in the past, we probably wouldn't be here. But they did not. So then you go back to the tax rate. The tax rate's another formula in which we get revenue. Judson ISD is one of the lowest tax rates in the county. We're at like 98 cents per valuation of a home. 3 pennies would put us at about $1.01, $1.02. But those 3 pennies would generate about $10 million more for the district, which when I told you our deficit would be under 10 million, that would wipe out the deficit. And then we would continuously have resources to provide the services our students desperately need. And so that's pretty much how it works. The homeowner would be responsible for that increased 3 cents, but 3 cents is nothing. But the amount that it does to support districts is enormous.
So I heard you say, and again, clarity, because I know people are listening and watching and may or may not be thinking to ask this. But you started off kind of explaining where the deficit was, and that in 2000 up until 2019, at a very consistent basis, the state increased the per pupil allotment pretty much every 2 years. But at 2019, it was basically a freeze, and all the way to 2023, there was no increase.
So 25 was only $55.
Overstood. I just want to make sure we all catching the same information. So from 2019 to 2023, there was nothing. In 2025, there was a $55 increase per pupil. And from what and maybe I'm not hearing this right, I just want to make sure I'm hearing it right. Based on that change in funding from the state, that created deficit, and I wouldn't say just for Judson. I would say probably across the state for multiple, if not most, of the districts. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Absolutely. People kind of tend to maybe look at our district as the only one experiencing these issues. This is a statewide problem. And the fact is that Texas public education has been underfunded. So as a result, that's where we find ourselves. I was asked a question the other day why our deficit was so high, though, and I have to be transparent with it, too. When I was board president, I led the highest pay raises for our employees. They received a 6% pay raise one year and a 4.5% the next year. That's 10.5%. That goes against our budget, right? So we made that investment because we had over 200% over our savings in our fund balance, which means we had too much money. We had to spend it. So I said in the short run, we have a good 3 or 4 years where we can utilize that extra money to pay our teachers what they're worth, because the goal is to keep experienced teachers in the classroom. We all know that makes a big difference. So we were the highest paid district for a couple of years. And so unfortunately, that was a sort of a gamble. You know, there's always a gamble in everything you do. Without the state just bumping that allocation per pupil up just a little, it didn't give us the ability to sustain that. But we did try. Had we passed our tax rate increase last November, we wouldn't be here. Had the legislature increased the allotment by $1,000, we wouldn't be here. So we had to make a calculated decision to pay our employees so they would stay. And we had the best retention numbers that we'd ever seen in the district. Now that time has passed us, and now we have to wrestle with a deficit. But as I mentioned earlier, there is a pathway to get that done that did not include closing 4 campuses.
And I appreciate that breakdown. And while you were kind of re-breaking it down, it made me think of something. And again, I have no clue what your response is going to be, even if you may say, you know what,
We're trying to be
I'm
real,
not.
so
But you might say I can't respond to that. Ultimately, and specifically looking at some of the traffic on different pages of people who are sharing the JISD, just information, whether it be from the board meetings, school closures, whatever it is, you often look in the comments, and when it is discussed about the deficit, there are 2 things that are typically present. One, the state is underfunding public schools. But number 2, the reason why Judson and the other schools are closing schools is because the charter schools are stealing all of the students. And the reason why I thought about that the second time you said it, because, and I appreciate your transparency, the first time you said we had a plan, and our plan was based on, my word, projections, based on the trend of the state funding public schools. And every 2 years, it increased. And in 2019 to 2023, nothing. 2025, only $55. And then you doubled on and said, you know what, and some of it is my fault. Because as the board president, I wanted to make sure we took care of our talent. And we increased salaries by 6% and 4.5%, almost 11%. And that comes directly from the budget. And we took a gamble, but the gamble was worth it for our people. I did not hear you blame charters, private schools, or vouchers. And my question to you is this: what is the problem? Is it something internal, taking that gamble on your talent and hoping that the state truly does what they need to do for public schools? Or are those things that you read about in the comments, and it's not just charters and privates and vouchers, sometimes it's mismanagement of the money, sometimes it's, and I don't expect you to speak on this, it's where they pay this superintendent this to leave and that superintendent that to leave, and what's the real problem? Because I heard what you said and it made sense, but we hear so much other stuff.
Well, it should be noted that when we made that almost 11% jump in pay, the current superintendent did not recommend that. We had to override administration's recommendation. They wanted to pay 1%. I love Dr. Fields, but I told him, dude, we're not going to go away with 1%. We need, but it wasn't my decision alone.
Yeah.
My colleagues supported that.
Yeah.
This was a board majority that said this is the strategy we wanted to employ. And, but the idea of the deficit and charter schools and private schools, that is concerning because our enrollment dips. So when there's more advocacy for more charter schools, more private schools, we're not benefiting. The more we lose, it puts us in a position where we have less revenue. And so we have to then make choices. That's why I said earlier, we had to close at least 2 schools. I would have not wanted to close any of them. But we had to when the Vader failed and our enrollment's dipping. It made sense. Now the thing is, what's private schools? What are they going to do? Because already the vouchers are out there and families are being qualified. And we're expecting a 2 or 3% hit in enrollment, which is, again, going to hit the budget. And we don't get the luxury of staffing in October or September. We have to sign contracts with employees in March and April for next year's projection. And if we get 1,000 less students, well, we've already signed contracts with hundreds of teachers. We can't just say, sorry, see you later. They're in our budget, Now, there are some technical things we could do, but those are like very desperate things that we would be doing. But the idea of this deficit, it's tied in. We made the right investments. We're not at default yet because we still have $80 million in our reserve funds. We have a way forward. We just can't sustain it. So the risk was we were hoping we would get funded. We're not. So now we have to make some difficult decisions on cutting positions, closing a couple of schools. But I'm telling you, it could have been done much more strategic in a 2-year cycle than the trajectory that we're going in now. And hence, that's why we're having all the chaos now, because you removed an administration who wanted to be strategic. You put in an administration that's just now doing the will of the board majority, which the board majority is only 4 board members. But we have a divided board. And as I represent my community, the way I feel is how they feel. Any good representative reflects the values of their community.
No, that's good. And so we started off just with chaos. The chaotic Judson Independent School District. No, I'm just kidding. Let me give you another word. Let me give you another prompt. Because even though you're not homegrown from Judson and Converse, you feel like you're part of the family.
25 years there now, man.
So let me ask you this. I say the word tradition. Give me 3 areas that come to mind if I say tradition specific to Judson Independent School District.
There's definitely a rich pride in the district.
Pride.
And that pride is what's really distinguished us, I think, from other districts. It's deep. When I proposed to my wife, she made sure that we were living a mile away from Judson High School. She's a Judson High School grad. I love her to death, so here I am. But pride is a strong reflection of our district. And I would say legacy of of individuals who've done great things on the football field, the basketball court, in America, CEOs. We have a strong legacy of leaders, so that is something that is distinguishable. And the one that I find that's most compelling is that because of our heavy military connection, we're known all over the country. And so there are Judson graduates that don't just live in San Antonio. They're everywhere. And that just goes back to the distance in which we have representation of the type of district we are.
So, pride, legacy, and I'm a shape the last word to diversity. Those three good ones, I think. Like I said earlier, I'm a SISD product.
There's nothing wrong with that, man. There's nothing wrong with that. SISD is cool.
It better not be. but no, I have a lot of family. Came out of Judson. A lot of friends that I still, keep in contact with today from Judson. So the district as a whole, y'all okay with me. I need y'all to get through this.
You're okay with me too, man.
I need y'all to get through this little rough spot. With that being said, just speaking towards the pride, the legacy, and the diversity, what are some good things that are going on? It don't have to be sports. It don't have to be. It could be sports, but what's going on right now that people should know about?
That we're ultra focused on making the grade. You know, there's
Okay.
accountability grades. We have a phenomenal staff from top down that are working on making the grade. And so we've grown a lot. We've come out of COVID, and I still believe we're strong. There have been some challenges, like in every district, with this COVID loss. But we're on a trajectory to really make some noise this next accountability rating, because that's been the whole focus. You know, all the noise of the budget deficit, the board antics, our teachers and staff have been focused on the grade. And so I feel pretty proud about that. And of course, we still have a great deal of emphasis in our early college academy and our STEM programming. I mean, there's some really good things that are coming out of our district that I'm prayerful that we survive, because I can't help but that chaos word in the back of my mind. Despite it all, we still have to overcome these challenges, and accountability for those things will not be immediate. It's going to take some time. But the other part that people need to realize is the community is together. I've seen more people now coming together than I've ever seen.
You said something, and I got to address it. You said, I hope we survive. Let's talk about that. Because, again, I don't know how well-versed the audience, the community is on just governance, on compliance, and just in general, just how public schools are ran. But we see what we see now. We see the chaos, as the word you used, on the board. We see there's some changes being made as far as school closures. But this is just what's happening today. There could be more things to come. We know the best case scenario is this ship is turned around. As you called it, kumbaya. Everybody's getting along, and JISD is making progress. But there's also another side of that story. What's the worst that could happen? Because people are saying, or people are thinking, Judson could be shut down.
Well, some of the real realities when I say survive, there are teachers, campus leaders, principals who are disillusioned, who are getting ready to leave our district. And these are talented people that, you know, I hate to see them go. But if they make that decision at the end of the year, now we're going to see a drop in potential talent and experience, lack of continuity with campuses and community. That's all having to be rebuilt.
Yes.
It can be rebuilt, but it's going to take a moment. And then the reality is, due to the governance lapses that we're seeing, TEA could send a conservator. They could throw out the whole board. They could throw out everything. And, you know, that's not the best thing, but if we're not in compliance, as I allege we are not, that is an invitation to invite TEA in, and that changes everything. And, of course, TEA, props to you guys, but they're not part of our community typically. They come and make decisions that may not be in the best interest. So it's almost like be careful for what you wish for. But at this point, if my colleagues don't wake up and, you know, if the community doesn't hold them accountable, then we will continue down this trajectory. And I say because there have been some governance lapses that I've been very vocal about.
Wow. So there's no need for speculation. Coming straight from a trustee, a board member, y'all got to right this ship. You don't want big brother looking over your shoulder saying, what y'all doing over there? Let me come down this hill and check on these people real quick, make sure everything okay. Y'all better get it together. Y'all be having comedian Alvin Perry doing comedy shows at the
Well, and I'll go back to what you said earlier. Do I want to do better for the sake of not being taken over? or do I want to do better by ensuring I advocate for my community?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said in the beginning, we're fighters. We're not going to yield and allow a dictatorship type leadership
Mm-hmm.
to silence our voices and take from our students and destroy our community. I have an elected responsibility to speak, and I'm going to. And accompanying that, I'm going to fight. And so right now, this conversation is to be real and transparent. We have challenges that I don't know how we're going to solve them other than at the ballot box. And in 13 months, there will be accountability. And I want the community to speak. And that will be their opportunity.
13 months is the next election?
May of 27.
That's a long time to be in chaos.
It is, but I'm thinking some of the more chaotic things like consolidation already are done. The removal, unlawful removal, in my opinion, of a superintendent has already been done. Now you have to think what more crazy stuff can come out of it. We've already done two of the more crazier things, so maybe there'll be sort of a flat line. There might still be some issues, but as long as we're not closing 4 more campuses or we're getting 4 more superintendents in 4 weeks, I mean, those are catastrophic. So there might be sort of, like I said, a flat plane type of movement. But yeah, 13 months is a long time, but it's really not. 13 months gets here real quick. There have been at least 4 or 5 individuals who've expressed running against the board chair.
Really?
And so there are people that are dissatisfied with leadership, and there will be a contested race.
Are y'all at large, or y'all just
We have 5 single-member districts
5 single men?
and 2 at-large seats.
And I would assume that one is in
At-large.
it's at large.
The chair is at-large right now. So anybody in Judson can run against her. So I'm telling you, there is definitely some concerns, and I think accountability. Any elected official, their accountability is to the community, and her time will come.
Now, you said the word removed earlier, and I don't know if this person was removed or not, but I know you guys have a new football coach. Now, I know you have Wagner now, and you have veterans, but we know when people talk about Judson football, they're talking about Judson Rockets. So, what's going on with this new hire? Y'all confident as a board they gonna take y'all to the promised land? Or what's going on? Tell us about it.
I like the guy, Vernon.
You like the guy.
He's a cool cat. I think he's going to do really well. A lot of props to Coach Soto, the former coach, a Judson grad, state championship winner. Nothing but love and respect for him as well. But we turned the table, and so.
And he came from veterans.
Who this?
The
guy?
Soto, the other guy.
He came from Johnson, I believe.
Johnson,
and he was
okay.
in San Marcos for a little while.
Okay, good.
But
good.
no, he's
Set a resume.
But he is a Judson grad.
Yeah.
And of course, just know I wear my Judson state champion ring from the girls basketball. So we do more than just football. We're
Overstood.
beast.
But y'all got a basketball coach.
We
Y'all got a new football coach.
We are strong.
So you feel like this new coach and whatever system he's bringing in is going to bring y'all back to the glory days?
Yes. I will say that those that are going to Steele need to come back to Judson, because that's what's happening. A lot of folks are looking at the Steele program because it's doing so well, so they're relocating there, and that's understandable. But I do believe that Judson is about to rise again.
So I just want to be clear. The charter schools ain't stealing football players from the Rockets. It's still
still nice, man. We're all in the same area,
still
man.
nice, okay. And maybe East Central too.
A little bit of East Central.
East Central beat y'all. I don't know if it was last year or the year before.
Oh, dude, don't remind me of that. But yes,
I think it was the year before they beat y'all. All right, man. So listen to me. We went from chaos to pride, legacy, and diversity. To you getting a new football coach. What else is going on? I don't want it to just be chaos. What else is going on in the Judson Independent School District we're talking about?
Today I have an opportunity to talk with several PTAs about AI.
Okay.
So we're doing a little bit of that. And, of course, I'll be the spokesperson for the Hispanic Honor Society Day at Wagner High School. So there's a lot of student engagement. I actually had a young lady go sit in my board seat. She's a young fifth grader from
Okay.
Rolling Meadows, African American young lady, who I said, you can be in this seat one day. So there's still a lot of cultivating. I believe in cultivating young leaders into becoming future leaders.
No, that's good. And speaking of the future, what people don't realize, just because you're closing schools doesn't mean you won't be opening schools. Is there a plan? Because I would assume that you guys work with the city of Converse, you work with Bexar County, just looking at the growth of the area and things like that. Is it a world where you may need another elementary or middle school, and are you guys preparing for that? I don't think there's any. Are there elementary and middle schools near veterans?
We opened up 2 schools,
Okay.
a middle school and an
Okay.
elementary school, which has led to part of the problem.
Okay,
Because
okay.
back in 2022, when we passed the bond for those campuses, we were exploding.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we saw dips. Again, not the only district that saw dips. A lot of districts have seen that. And so now what we have campuses that we'll reuse, that we can reactivate.
Okay.
And I do have an objective to possibly revisit 1 or 2 campuses next year to bring them back.
Okay.
But I have to wait for enrollment. I need to see what that looks like before I can present that case.
And outside of still in the football players, and just after 2019, after 2020, when a lot of people didn't return from COVID and doing things online and homeschool, how can you get more butts in the seats? Like, is it more programs? Is it what is it? They need to build more houses. What needs to happen to get more kids enrolled?
Because I'm very familiar with charter schools as well as private schools. I worked for a private school. I worked for a charter school.
Okay.
I've been a school board trustee. I've even had an opportunity to serve in higher ed
Okay.
when I was with Alabama colleges. So I've seen it all. The issue is that we can't be everything to everyone.
Got it.
And so charter schools have a niche. Private schools have a niche. But I've always told my colleagues, and we were almost there, if we create smaller campuses, they're going to provide better student success. We're trying to cram as many students so that our cost is different. But if we had a stronger finance system, we could create smaller campuses that meet the student need. And the shame is that 2 of the campuses we're closing, one is a B-rated campus and one is a C-rated campus. They're not failing our students, but we're closing them for the optics of the budget. And so going forward, it's, we'll have to address those issues. But the bottom line of why we exist is to ensure student success.
Hey, I don't know any other reason why you would exist. If you're not trying to get our young people across the finish line and to the next level, then you're not doing your job. So that's a wonderful thing. I will say this. I agree with you. It looks chaotic over there.
It doesn't look, it is chaotic, man.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. Well, you know what? I stay in my yard. I don't, if my ball go over there, I'll ask you to throw it back. But it does look chaotic. But at the end of the day, that shouldn't take away from the hard work that people are doing. Even, the people you may not agree with, I would assume in their disagreement, they have some level of interest that is positive for the community. I don't ever want to assume that anybody's not who they say they are, not for the people they say they represent. But with that being said, I think everyone should really, 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 really be aware that even in times of chaos, there are positive things to report. There are things to look forward to. And it sounds like there are some things to look forward to in the Judson Independent School District.
I would 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I was waiting on that second.
100.
I was waiting on him to second that motion.
100%. But, even now they say that when you go through adversity, you really find out who you are.
Yeah.
And so when we're going through this adversity and we come out on the other side, we're going to be even stronger. So we have work to do to find our next superintendent. We have work to do to address these issues on the board, but we're still doing the work. And again, this is not infinite. There is a clock ticking.
Yeah.
And if it's 13 months from now, it's 13 months from now. By then, we'll have a new superintendent. We may have accountability for board seats, and we're in a whole different area. And I can say that with absolute confidence because I've worked with over 30 different board members as a trustee. it's never been this bad. So it is unique to this period in time, and we will come out stronger. I know we will.
I know you will, because you will, whoop, whoop, Justin Rocket. With that being said, we're coming to a close of our community conversation with Board Trustee Jose Macias with Judson Independent School District. But when this is posted, I want you guys to answer, to comment, ask questions. We're going to make sure we tag Jose. And, of course, I'm going to be tagged in it. So it might be something I said you might not have liked. We'll put it in the comments, and maybe I'll address it. Maybe I won't. Same thing for Jose. If there's some questions for clarity, because y'all heard him say, it ain't the charter school's fault. Y'all might want to call him out on that. Drop a comment, and we'll get another dialogue going. And if we need to have another one of these conversations, and maybe even invite you, we will. With that being said, I want to thank you, my friend Jose. My name is Tyrone Darden, and this has been Community Conversations on TAN TV, the African American Network.
Hello, family and friends. I'm Lakeisha D. Howard, and I am running as an independent candidate for the Texas House District 124. I am a servant leader in our community who believes in the voices being heard. I am a retired Air Force veteran, as well as a retiree from the Department of Veteran Affairs. For me, this is not about politics and party. This is about our community voice being heard. We can only do that as one. And that's why I have elected to run as an independent versus being tied to a particular party. I am tied to our community, each and every one of you. I want to show transparency and accountability. I want our voices to be heard at our state capitol. I want us to show love and action because that's what brings community together. So vote for me in November 2026 as your independent state representative for District 124. I'm Lakeisha Howard. I love each and every one of you, and I cannot wait to hear your voice.